nobody should waste 50 days a year on social media. The average human being at the moment wastes 50 days a year on social media. And 50 days a year is a huge murderer for entrepreneurship and everything you want to do in life. And so yeah, kids, probably if you watch this, I have to adjust it a bit because you're meanwhile living in a metaverse and you need to make sure that you're not the whole day in there or whatever, but I think the fundamentals, the principles behind it are evergreens, and so it makes sense to speak about it. And I'm relying to the start data, and I was checking them, and so the digital age obviously accelerates all of this, and we subconsciously commodified our most valuable asset, which is time, and no one really understands how critical and problematic this is. So I'm relying on the start data, and the start data shows that the average human being at the moment scrolls around 50 days a year if we consider an 8-hour sleep cycle. While I was reading this, I realized that I personally did a power move a few years ago when I banished instant gratification out of my life. At this time, it wasn't really to protect time, it was more from a mental health state. So I said I will not watch porn, I will avoid nicotine and alcohol, I will try to avoid social media. At the end of the day, I ended up with really using tools and apps to make sure I'm not entering the social media platforms at all. I'm totally fine with being someone who produces stuff and put it online, but about the consumption, it's very, very difficult. And so I thought it makes sense to lock in my experiences and what I learned and how I did it, that hopefully someone else out there can do exactly the same, because it's urgent and it's probably one of the most powerful moves you can do at the moment, to use those 50 times for something else. The first is that you should fast from social media, and you should fast from porn and probably other things, but I really mean it. You have to define and make the decision, hey, I do not want to consume it subconsciously. If I'm doing it proactively, very aware, but I have times where I'm not allowed to do it anyways. And I'm putting the similarities or the parallels to the intermediate fasting. I'm eating just between 12 and 5. And obviously this could help with fasting from social media as well, that you say yourself, okay, the only moment I'm allowed to use social media is from 2. Anyways, if you wake up in the morning, I'm avoiding my phone completely for the first 90 minutes. Usually I'm waking up at 4, 5, 6 a.m. I'm not using any alarm because that was a promise to myself when I sold my first company, that I do not need an alarm anymore. And so I'm trying to avoid my phone for the first 90 minutes. Sometimes it's not working because I know I have to do something immediately, which I carry it from the last day, but most of the time I'm doing this. So setting slots can be incredibly helpful. The second step is to stick with those slots. You should break the habit. And there are apps like 1sec. I'm not somehow connected with them, so I do not get anything, obviously, because I don't care. But apps like those are helping a lot because you have a muscle memory, and sometimes it's not even you, but it's subconsciously opening Instagram or whatever. And so an app which gives you a blockage for 60 seconds and you're realizing, okay, why the hell I'm doing it just because I'm sitting on the toilet, I shouldn't be necessarily on Instagram, is something which can benefit the whole slot process pretty well. And this is about the timeline, like we are wasting 50 days on social media, but obviously time is so valuable and so important that we should take care of it very, very well. And how I start doing it is time blocking and time tracking. The time blocking is also a slot principle. It's easy, you say from to, it's dedicated for learning, it's dedicated for work, it's dedicated for sales, it's dedicated for checking the KPIs, it's dedicated for whatever. And on the other hand, I'm keeping track of what I've done the whole day. If you do this very aware and attentive, you will be surprised about how a day actually looks like. And you feel maybe that you were productive, but if you look at your tracking, you will see, holy, what have I done most of the day, or what did I spend my hours for? And so the time tracking was helpful for me to get an understanding of what I perceive and what's the reality. Then I implemented a priority matrix. Back in the days, I did all my same. I said, okay, what's not urgent, what's not important, that's the least thing I will do. What is important but not urgent, what is urgent not important, and what is important and urgent. The important and urgent tasks were the ones I fully focused on, and it was kind of an eat that frog methodology where I said, okay, it's not important how I'm doing things. If I do them exceptionally well, they do not necessarily become more important, but it's important to think about what am I doing, and is this having an impact on my long-term and overall goal, or the company's long-term and overall goal. Meanwhile, I delegate as much as possible. Means I have a personal assistant for my personal stuff, I have an executive assistant for my executive stuff, and I'm just focusing on important and urgent and important and not urgent. All the other tasks are basically delegated and are done by someone else. And last but not least, I have an interruption control. I saw a video from someone who is using those big ear noise blockers you're using on constructions and so on, and I fell in love with the idea. Meanwhile, I even maybe over exaggerated a bit because I'm using earplugs and I put those noise cancelers on top of them. I'm closing the room. I do not have any devices or something besides the task I have, and try really to get into a deep work state, which is comparable to a meditative state and which is helping me to stay focused on what I have to do. Especially me, diagnosed with ADHD back in the days, it was not really helpful if I was working in an environment where a lot of things happen. So sometimes I'm even preferring my home over an office. Doesn't mean that I do not love the culture, or doesn't mean that I don't enjoy being with other human beings. Just work-wise, time protection-wise, I have to make sure in case I'm focusing on something, I can create my own little capsule where no interruptions are possible. And so I made a video which is named The Most Valuable Asset, and the idea is health, obviously, but I would like to add that time comes right after. And if I'm not careful enough with my time, I think life just runs through the hands. And so I want to make sure that every moment is aware and that I know exactly what I'm dedicating it to. It's okay to do nothing, but then I'm proactively doing nothing and enjoying the nothing, and to make sure that I do not fall into a spiral of an external controlled time planning. So kids, take care of your time, take care of your health. If you have done this and you're doing it, you are doing probably pretty well.